and gentlemen, let's now move on to the top story this hour. Focus of our discussion this hour. In fact, the Congress manifesto was out last week. Amongst the many things that were promised, Rahul Gandhi has now promised a financial survey to distribute wealth amongst Indians. The Prime Minister has hit back, mincing no words. He says that the Congress manifesto not only lacks vision, but also is being influenced by Muslim League and communists. Now, we all know that the Modi government rode to power with the promise of depositing 50 lakhs in every account in 2014. So clearly the promise of wealth distribution is not new to politics. But why is the BJP then dubbing Congress manifesto as being influenced by communists?
जाति जनगणना, दूध का दूध, पानी का पानी, उसके बाद इकोनॉमिक सर्वे, धन का सर्वे, हिंदुस्तान में कितना धन है, किसके पास है, किसके हाथों में है।
कांग्रेस के घोषणा पत्र में वही सोच झलकती है जो सोच आजादी के आंदोलन के समय मुस्लिम लीग में थी। कांग्रेस के घोषणा पत्र में पूरी तरह मुस्लिम लीग की छाप है और इस मुस्लिम लीग वाले घोषणा पत्र में जो कुछ हिस्सा बचा खुचा रह गया उसमें वामपंथी पूरी तरह हावी हो चुके हैं।
In fact, as we speak, the Congress has moved the election commission today against the Prime Minister and its chief. Kareer has accused the BJP's ideological ancestors of feuding with Muslim League. But our focus tonight is on whether the redistribution of wealth is actually possible. And to discuss that further, I'm now joined by our guest tonight, that is Mitali Nikore, the founder and economist at Nikore Associates. Thank you very much, Mitali, for joining us this evening. My first question to you really is that, after the Congress party propounded Jitni Abadi Utna Haq, now Rahul Gandhi is really fighting for wealth redistribution or income redistribution. Is that a viable idea? Has that been implemented anywhere? Can you think of any country where it's been implemented, and how has it really performed in those geographies?
So first of all, thank you so much for having me. And I think this is a very interesting conversation because wealth redistribution is quite opposed to the principles of a capitalist economy. When we look at wealth redistribution as a concept, it's often associated with, communism and very less with capitalism. What we associate with a country like India is a concept of welfare. Where we have growth on one hand, we are cognizant of how this growth is impacting, and of course it can be unequal for different groups, and there is nobody, on any side of the political spectrum who can who can say that yes, India is an equal country. We can't say that. We know that there is income inequality, and we know that this income inequality is also growing. How to address this income inequality and the cost of not sacrificing the growth? If you don't increase the size of the pie, then how will you distribute the pie amongst more and more people? So, you need to have techniques for distribution of wealth, no doubt about it. But the way it is being proposed by the Congress manifesto, it shows that there is no actual plan for doing it. And of course, taxation is the most important instrument for redistribution of wealth. But then there are also, distribution of wealth initiatives like welfare measures. And I think expanding the two, expanding the net of people who come into the tax bracket, and also expanding a range of welfare measures for not just the poorest, but maybe a few deciles above the poorest as well, are more practical, doable measures rather than, the ideas which don't have plans at this point in time, which are being propounded in this manifesto at this point in time.
Right, Mitali. In fact, I was going to be mentioning, that point about this being a communist idea and Marx's words, from each according to his ability to each according to his need. And that really does disincentivize the ones who are really working hard and are innovating. Not to say that income inequality should not be removed. Definitely, there should be some policies that need to be brought in to reduce that gap between the richest and, of course, the poorest. I want to really understand from you when you say that, reformatory measures should be taken, policy measures should be taken, but the government already has such schemes that are running, whether it is Lakh Didis, whether it is the PM Awas Yojana, then you have other subsidy schemes available as well, and there have been loan waivers also being brought in.
Absolutely. Over the last 10 years, as well as in the past, India as a country has always had a socialist welfare identity. All of us also feel very strongly about the concept of philanthropy, about the concept of social justice, in different ways. And I am a policy economist. I dedicated my life to development sector. A lot of people are doing this. But at the same time, we also recognize that job creation is important. We also recognize that, global competitiveness in the trade industry, in the services industry is important. And for that, you need the innovation and entrepreneurship to come from the private sector. And that's not going to come if you don't provide them with the right incentives and ecosystems. So it's as important for markets to work, for welfare to work, as it is for income inequality to be addressed head on. And I think what we need definitely going forward, which is being recognized by this government by a series of measures. So as you mentioned, the Mudra loan scheme, the Jan Dhan scheme. The Jan Dhan scheme happens to actually open bank accounts for the unbanked and the poorest, taking financial independence to a very large section of people, especially women. So recognizing the fact that marginalized groups will need more and more support going forward, recognizing the fact that you're going to have schemes which target those that are still unconnected from the benefits of growth has been the feature of this administration, that targeted poverty alleviation is the way to work. And I think it's always, all sides recognize that trickle-down economics is not working. Just having this idea of this, we keep growing. So it's important to target the schemes, and that's what will happen going forward.
Right, Mitali. And at this point, let me also bring in Mr. Sanjeev Srivastava, who's a political commentator. Thanks very much, sir, for joining us this evening on India Tonight. We are, of course, discussing this issue of redistribution of wealth, and that's something that Congress leader Rahul Gandhi has propounded. But is this implementable really? It sounds very good in theory, but how about practice? Or is this only meant for winning the electorate?
So let's just play the devil's advocate. So if it is meant for winning the electorate, I see no problem in that. It is political season, and we are hearing promises galore. We heard promises of 2 crore jobs every year. We heard promises of farm income being doubled. We heard promises of black money being brought back in hordes and tons, in plane loads and truckloads. So there is this talk about this promise of redistribution of wealth. In practical, I concede that it won't be easy. It is not practical. It's a very leftist idea. But maybe, according to the Congress party or Rahul Gandhi, they think that it will appeal to the masses or the poor, which I personally doubt whether it will trickle down. Just like wealth is not trickling down, I don't think this idea of redistribution of wealth will also trickle down. But per se, in poll season, you have people making tall promises, people saying things which may be easier said than done, people saying things which may never be done, but they still say it, and it's not the first time. But in practice, in a country where 1% of the population controls 40% of wealth, where there are financial monopolies of very serious kinds, if not of the worst order, and where there is real concentration, and yes, it is against the theory of capitalist economy, but we also have instances of crony capitalism. So I think it's much hullabaloo about, it's again the manner to target the Congress party or Rahul Gandhi ki ye kaise bol diya, redistribution kaise kar sakte ho? This is a very leftist idea. But, so I don't know whether I'm I'm able to put my point across. I don't think it's doable, but I see nothing wrong in saying it or talking about redistribution or talking about equality in a country which suffers from grave inequality, monopolies, cases of crony capitalism. It's fine.
So you are essentially stating that, of course, if the other side, which is the BJP, the ruling party, is making some claims and that are not getting fulfilled, allegedly, then of course the Congress party can also. But two wrongs do not really make a right. And I think at this point in time, the Congress party really needs to put its act together to sort of increase its voting share. And because, this idea has been getting trolled on Twitter, if you really see, and there has been a problem of trust as far as the electorate is concerned. I'll come back to you, but let me go back to Mitali on this point. Mitali, you brought this point forth about, the distribution of income and, maybe how this is a common concept, but how income could be generated, how the problem of not creating enough opportunities, how entrepreneurship should be made available for everybody. That is a very interesting point that you made. But I want to understand, how can wealth then be created, and what should the Congress party really be looking at this point, and how the communication that the Congress party is putting forth should be fixed?
So, I'm not an expert on how, the communication should be fixed, because as an economist, I know very little about communication. But I'll definitely say this, that, at this point, any political party, anybody who is vying for our vote and our vote of confidence for the next 5 years has to present a vision of India where opportunities are democratized. And I completely agree with the previous speaker that, we have in any emerging economy, India is an exception, and in any emerging economy, we will have instances of monopolies coming up and crony capitalism and, situations where people try to corner, opportunities. And I think that is exactly what the electorate is looking for today. A credible promise from any political party which comes and says, I will make opportunities accessible to you. Now, how can a political party do that? It can do that by creating ecosystems where it's easier for the market to function, as opposed to, be controlled.
Right. Mitali, I get your point, and I'm really sorry, I'll have to butt in here because we're running completely out of time. I have to get one last comment from Mr. Srivastava before we close the show. Mr. Srivastava, there have also been references that have been thrown on Muslim League and that the Congress is divisive. Why should these references be brought in, especially when the BJP is confident of getting over 400 seats?
Well, that is something you should ask the BJP spokesperson. It's strange that the Prime Minister describes the principal opposition party's manifesto as a Muslim League manifesto. So maybe there are elements which they think are pro-minorities, but is that good? And while summing up my previous answer, you said something that but two wrongs don't make it right. So I completely agree with that. As long as the media questions both the wrongs. If media questions just one side of the stick and keep hammering on it, and there is near silence on the other side of the wrong, then two wrongs don't make a right. Both wrongs are seen differently by everybody. So I don't know whether you're understanding what I'm trying to say. That it is not a level playing.
That's essentially what we are attempting to do here, and which is why this open dialogue, this open conversation about both the sides that we're trying to bring out. And thank you very much, Mitali, and of course, Mr. Srivastava, for joining us tonight on India Tonight. It's indeed been a pleasure speaking to both of you and hearing to your points of view. And
if you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.